how valuation stops being a debate and becomes leverage. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Futurist Mindset Show. I'm here to introduce you to Reagan Rodriguez. Reagan is a futurist who teaches stratosphere wealthy legacy families how to become impact investors. Hi, Reagan. How are you?
I'm doing better than I deserve. How about yourself?
I'm very, very much the same. I'm doing wonderful and I'm excited. Love when you teach us on these topics. So I'll let you take the floor today.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll go ahead and get started here. So, reason I thought to go over valuations is because I'm currently helping three past clients that you happen to know very well as well, Tessa. I'm referring to that project in Uruguay. I'm working with Valentin and his father, Carlos, on that. I'm also helping the Silver Swan team. I've been talking with Glenn on another valuation he needs. And then the third one is the futurist of all futurists, Raymond, with Black Technologies Advancement.
Yes.
And one of the things that we're going over is how the moment that a valuation becomes an argument, control has already been lost. So this is the reason why I'd like to talk on this, because every stalled deal seems to break in the same place. And it's not what you think. It isn't necessarily on structure. And it's not even on the fact that there might not be motivation or money there. It seems to kind of break on belief, I've noticed. The owner believes that their owner is worth more. Maybe once somebody told them a specific number that was seven figures and they liked it, or maybe they were working with someone that was not very ethical, that's a broker, and maybe he inflated those expectations. Or what can happen, I'll speak for myself, maybe your emotion has replaced the reality. And when that happens, I always remind myself, let's think like an investor, because I realize how you might believe, right? I know what the owner believes, that the business is worth more than what it is. So instead, let's think what an investor would believe. An investor would say, when I'm looking here, the risk is obvious. There are gaps, and they're clear. And the numbers here don't seem to support the story. So for this reason is why I'd like to talk to you about solving one problem, and only one problem. How do you reset the valuation conversation without it being confrontation? And inside the Fifth Avenue Underground Club, the answer is the Black Ledger. It is not a valuation in the traditional sense. It is a controlled instrument, and it is used to open serious conversations, to establish a credible valuation range. I also use it to reveal what the structural weaknesses are, because then that prioritizes, well, what it does is it prioritizes where is it that I can add value on some creative initiatives. And then the other main reason I like to use it myself is because it removes emotion from that negotiation. So I'd like to be very clear. It is not a certified appraisal. It is not a price commitment, nor is it a negotiation commitment. It is a neutral third voice, and that's where its power lies. Most business owners, I've noticed, seem to struggle with three things simultaneously. They do not know what their business is worth. They do not know which problems matter most, and they don't know how to prioritize that change. And what I've noticed that does is it creates paralysis. And what I've developed with the Black Ledger solves all three, and it does so quickly. The process is deliberately simple. Step one is when the owner engages, that business owner is going to complete a short structured questionnaire. It takes about 10 minutes. And I have him or her fill that out. When the owner puts in the data themselves, what then happens is that defensiveness drops. Ownership then increases, and the trust also accelerates. They are now participating in discovery. They are not being sold to. The second step I like to move to is what I refer to as a comparative valuation. Comparative valuation meaning calculate the estimated value using comparable companies. We do it in the same industry, same geography. And we also are going to have a large reference database. And that's going to create a grounded market benchmark. That way it's not an opinion. And now we're going to move on to the third step, which is a 30-page diagnosis report. And when that is generated, it includes a valuation range. Now, I want to be very clear. It is not a single rigid number. It's more of an explanation of how that estimate was derived. And we also have a breakdown of the strengths and the weaknesses. It also is an analysis that is around 9 core dimensions. We also get into how the business can perform based on a score, 180, a 70. So that way it'll let you know where areas in value has gone down. This document does matter because it has weight. It will feel official, and it slows the conversation down. Let me talk with you a little bit about those 9 control dimensions, because that is where leverage lives. And this is where amateurs look at the valuation. And what I'm going to teach you how to do is to look elsewhere, because the Black Ledger evaluates areas such as, and I have these written down, the financial clarity, the customer concentration, the supplier dependency, the operational systems, the management depth, the documentation process, the intangible assets, what the risk exposure is, and the scalability. In each one of those areas, here's the key move. You don't anchor on the valuation. You anchor on the weak spots. So if these areas were brought here, the valuation can change materially. Now the conversation is no longer about price. It's about capability. I have also noticed that the reason why the owners are going to accept this, if I can use the word the psychology, is because it does 3 things. It's not you saying it, it is the ledger. It is a visual and a tangible. It is not some kind of spreadsheet. It's a report. And the third reason why I like it is it shows the weaknesses that can become the opportunities. So the ego is preserved, but the upside is then revealed. This is why resistance then dissolves. Here's what you want to say quietly, and here's what I've noticed many operators say. They maybe say this quietly. It's not me saying this, it's the ledger. And that sentence alone is going to save months of friction. So that's what you want to say quietly. It's not me saying this, it's the ledger. So how do you use it when you're sitting down with someone? You don't rush. You sit down with that owner and walk through them where the business is strong, where value is leaking, or where control is missing. And then stop. And then you say, this gap, this is where I work. That's it. There is no pitch deck. There is no, you don't have to persuade. You don't have to put any pressure on them. At the end of the Black Ledger report, there is space where you put in your name, your contact info, your details, and maybe even a short personalized message. It's not made as marketing. We do this so that it just shows presence and it frames you as thoughtful, intentional. In other words, you're already invested. Now, the control of the delivery is important. The report is delivered to you first, and then you decide what is shared, how is shared, and in what context. Whether it's in person or I do it on Zoom. And what this does is it ensures that you control the interpretation. You guide the attention. You prevent whatever misreads. There are some advanced use cases. So we'll mention a pre-engagement offer. So you can complete that yourself using the assumptions, which then gives you that early signal of whatever those red flags are that are protected. So look at it as more of a private control matter. You want to do that before the engagement. You also, second thing you want to do, progress the tracking. So the first thing is you have that pre-engagement qualification. Because remember, I mentioned you want to see what is detected and what might be some red flags. The second thing you want to do is you want to progress that tracking so you can rerun that ledger accordingly. So what that then does, you're now able to prove to that person that there's improvement, or whether there's stagnation, or whether we're moving backwards. So it becomes a governance. Very similar to a management benchmark. I like to refer to it as a leverage mechanism. The third thing, less technical owners. What do I mean by that? Sit with them, ask the questions, enter the data, then print the report. You can hand them the 30 pages about their own business, but when you do that, authority then skyrockets. Let me give you an important boundary, because I do not want you to cross these. Do not edit the valuation. Don't argue with the data. And you don't promise to pay that number. Instead, you're going to say, this is a guide, not a verdict. Because ultimately, value is when a buyer and a seller agree. So that black ledger is simply going to anchor the reality. It's going to structure the conversation. And I've noticed that it then keeps momentum moving. I think that I'm done. The final thing that I want to add for all of you is that the black ledger is not the deal. It is the permission slip. It allows you to enter calmly, with credibility, without resistance, and once inside, ownership then becomes a matter of timing and not persuasion. So, Tessa, you seem to have done a really good job of listening. I could tell you were taking down notes. Any questions you have?
No, I think that this is great advice for anybody from a sales perspective as a whole anyway. Like, this is the whole buying experience. I wrote down so many notes, even if it wasn't, me doing a black ledger necessarily. You had great advice in here. And I just wanted to highlight one of the comments that you just said.
Please.
The value is when a buyer and a seller agree, and you're taking the emotion out of the initial stages. And this is, you take out the emotion and then you get to that point where everybody agrees. And I just love the structure that the Fifth Avenue Underground Club provides, because this isn't something that is common knowledge. So this is something they would be able to get from you in the club, right? And they would,
and this software kind of platform that puts all of this together, it's very similar to, I'm going to grab this book on my bookshelf here. I know I've talked to you about this.
Yes.
It's called The Automatic Customer. And I think you have a client that is going through someone that was certified with Value Builder.
Yes,
okay.
Correct.
And that Value Builder will give a personal report. The difference is it's not made so much for an exit strategy of a business owner, although it does help with the exit. It's there to help the improve on different modules that they go over.
I love that,
so,
that you have so much structure to it, and when people are going through this process, they're setting the benchmark, like you said, for them to show progress, and sliding themselves into that gap. So it was beautiful from all perspectives. So thank you for sharing it.
Yeah, and the other thing is that one might be real simple. Remember how I said you can be creative about finding ways to improve it? Mm-hmm. So, and I got this idea out of this book. One of the modules they refer to is Switzerland structure, meaning you don't want to be too dependent on one supplier, one vendor. So that's why it's called the Switzerland structure, because if you remember history, they never wanted to get involved with United Nations, they didn't want to be dependent on other. So if somebody has, as I've mentioned before, a manufacturing plant that is doing well, but they only have 2 customers, their Switzerland structure is completely off. So we would say, well, based on this, we're really not ready to sell, because if you lose one customer, then the person that acquires it is kind of screwed now. Right. So you don't want to be too dependent on one customer or client, just like you don't want to be dependent on one supplier or one vendor. So that's just one area I talked on. Okay, we're done.
Well,
close us out of here.
Thank you so much. And if you would like more information on the Fifth Avenue Underground Club, you can go to the Fifth Avenue website, 5THAAVC.com. It's on the screen. And connect with Reagan. And if you haven't hit the bell already to get notifications, please do. You can get all kinds of information from Reagan, and also find out about projects that Reagan's working on. So thank you, Reagan, and we appreciate your knowledge every week. Have a good week, everyone.